I mean, you kind of only get one shot in our sport.
Right.
Osborne's right there.
Zach Osborne.
Osborne's here.
He's an AMA Supercross champion, an AMA Pro Motocross champion, and a name etched in Supercross and motocross history. What comes after the checkered flag? Get ready for an incredible conversation with Zach Osborne on winning at the highest level throughout a long and decorated career, the discipline it takes to perform at your peak, and the traits of flow state in elite athletes. Get ready for Zach on the Be Extraordinary podcast.
Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Urban Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development.
Welcome to the show, Zach Osborne, Rodney Erd. I'm joined by my partner, and he's going to kick us off wide open here.
Yeah, man, we're missing our third leg, Brett Young, but man, we're excited. Zach, I feel like we've spent a good 3 years trying to get you on the show. We finally have you, and as you heard in the intro, man, it's like you've got one of the most decorated motorsports, cycle sports dudes in the industry. I don't even know, is there a Hall of Fame? This guy would be a Hall of Famer. And he's just a phenomenal dude, and I'm excited to dive into to what we've got to talk to you about today. But real quick, I know I hit on a lot of things in that intro, but it's always fun to kind of hear from our guests their story. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us your condensed story and how we got here.
Yeah, I'm Zach Osborne. I'm 35 years old. I'm originally from Abingdon, Virginia, a small southwest mountain town in the corner of Virginia. I started riding motorcycles pretty young, like three or 4 years old, and kind of progressed at the local level to getting some sponsor attention and being nationally recognized, and then going to some bigger races around the country here in the States, and eventually to Europe, and just kind of all over the place. Started my pro career at 16 years old, really pretty young in the grand scheme of things, but essentially failed massively in the beginning. Went to Europe for 5 years to kind of, I would say revitalize, but at the time it was literally the only thing I had going for me. That it was either go there or stop racing and get a real job. And went there.
16 to what?
So it was like 17 to 23.
So a minute. You were in Europe for
almost 5 years.
So 16 years old.
Yep.
Start your pro career. You said it was terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of only get one shot in our sport,
right.
and that was my shot. So 16 years old, 17 years old, gone to Europe at 18.
So you feel like you blew it at 16, 17, your shot was gone, and you're like, I'm going to go pursue it somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I wasn't pursuing it somewhere else because I wanted to. It was, like I said, it was the last option. It was all I had left. I went to Europe on a 2-race deal, 3-race deal, 2 British championships, which is kind of a I wouldn't want to say lower level, but it's not quite world championship level or, AMA level like here in the States. Had a couple of good races and then 2 GPs and, stayed on the same team for 4.5 more years. And 1 GP's kind of caught the attention of some American teams. Got back here in 2013.
Wow.
And, the rest is history, I guess.
So is the way that it works when you said you kind of have one chance, and if you don't get it, is that on the sponsorship side? Is that the team side? Why is it so you perform or you're out in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's just the lay of the land. Like, it's really expensive. Motorsports is really expensive, and I think that there's just this like sort of stigma, I guess, in our sport where you're either going to make it or you're not, and that's kind of changed over the last 5 or 6 years where older guys now are getting a shot. Teams are realizing that, like, people have taken their knocks on someone else's dime, and they're suddenly 25 years old and ready to win races. And so I think older guys are getting more opportunities. But like in 2006, when I turned pro, it was like, if you're not 16 or 17 and you're not doing it, it's just not going to happen.
Wow. Yeah. So it's the kind of pressure is what I'm trying to just acknowledge is like, it's a do or die, and hey, I'm performing or this could end. Right?
Oh yeah. It's like, a ticket that's got 15 holes on it, and once you fill those holes, you've either launched or you're going home, basically.
Wow.
I mean, to recognize that at such a young age too, it's like, I mean, you had to be wired different anyway. I mean, you started early in the career, then your amateur kicks off, and then to decide to make that jump to pro, you had some sponsorships that gave you the ride, I'm assuming, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just to each their own, sort of. But mine was sort of, I don't know, a little bit accelerated for whatever reason. I was just stuck in a strange spot where I didn't really have any amateur stuff left to tick. So it was like, now's the time.
Wow.
And yeah, launched.
So
First of all, my son's 3.5, and I'm like, you start getting on a bike at 3. I'm like, my son can't even ride a bicycle. Like my 5-year-old can't even ride a bicycle. So I'm trying to just put myself in the mind of like, at a young age, you just gravitated. Obviously, your parents had to be a big part of this, right?
Yeah, my dad actually raced cars, drag cars professionally as well. So
Racing was in your blood then.
yeah, I guess so. I just never really chose that path. I was never really super interested in it, and I always had like a dirt bike and a 4-wheeler in the garage or whatever. And my uncle raced some, and yeah, I don't know. It just happened, right? That's kind of how it is.
It fascinates me too that you go through that amateur career and you said I have nothing left to tick. Means that to me that means you won everything there was to win. That's a polite way of saying. I mean, I won everything, so it's like what's left for me to do? And at 16 to know that it's do or die. I mean, my son's 16. I mean, I can't think. Sure. I mean, I love my boy, but I can't imagine him going, man, this is my shot. I'm going to take it, and it's do or die with whatever you love to do. I can't even. That doesn't even register with me.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. Honestly, like it's pretty straightforward. Like you get one shot, and maybe you get a backup shot that's like not quite the same level as the factory level ride, well, and that's it.
And I think too, I'd love the perspective too, right, Zach? So it's like you get your shot at 16. You had a pro ride from 16 to 17. It didn't go well. You had nothing to do. You left for Europe. And then I can't believe it's very common for someone to re-enter like the way you re-entered. I mean, your shot was gone. You said you get one shot, and all of a sudden you're getting love from stateside sponsors again, and you're back here with an opportunity. And then from there, the rest is history, and you've won everything here there is to win.
Yeah, it was a strange path for sure, like very unorthodox, very unconventional. Normally, once you go there, you're kind of gone. I was super fortunate to have the boss that I had there. When I went there, I was super burnt, like just crushed spirit, crushed. Yeah.
How did I get here?
Yeah. How did I manage this?
And now I'm 18 years old in a foreign country.
Yeah. And
where were
got
you?
In England, luckily. So no language barrier. I loved England. I enjoyed the food. It kind of just like landed on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
There was a family there that kind of took me in, and really just kind of changed the way I saw things.
So you weren't with your family at this point.
No.
You're on your own.
Yeah, I was solo. My now wife was in college, in high school at the time, and then college. She would come during summer break and spring break and kind of any chance that she had. But my boss, he was like just super passionate, like just bare raw racing. Like whatever I needed, didn't matter. He was there to do it, and so were the mechanics. So was the whole team was just like this big camaraderie that I had never felt before, and back to pure racing. And like I found fun that I had never had, like even as a kid, and it just like recharged me fully.
So you go there, burn out, and then you find this group, and you kind of fall in love with racing again.
Yeah.
I just hear so many things. I hear I'm going to Europe. It's my last shot. It's all I got. I hear I'm not quitting, number one. Then I hear that I find a team that's got culture, number two. And then I hear you say I was starting to have fun again, which has got to be something to it, right? I mean, I just hear all these different topics and subject matters. We could go in 800 different directions right now. Is there one direction you'd like to go to make any points on those, what I just said first, before I keep going?
Yeah, I mean, to me, probably the thing that sticks out the most is the camaraderie. Like I said, I had never felt that here in America. Teams are super corporate, super square, and like you're kind of in a box. And there, when I went there, I just had freedom that I had never experienced before, and it was kind of like a clean slate, fresh start for me. I was sort of still judged by my transgressions here, but at the same time, I felt like I had a sort of a fresh start, and I could kind of leave that behind me. So that would be the biggest thing takeaway from my whole European life was just, revitalization.
Taylor and I spent some time getting, Taylor and Brett spent some time getting ready for the podcast, and we were not knowing all the depths of your story, but knowing your story, we started talking about the seasons of a champion, right? And I think more than anything, it's illuminated now. Just it makes it more. I always thought a lot of you, knowing that you had a lot of success, I guess, in the second go around of your stateside career, which I got to believe, like with most things, golf is my number one thing that I think about. Like the PGA Tour in America is the tour.
Right.
There's a European tour, but it's not the PGA Tour, right? Mm-hmm. I got to believe that.
It's similar, I would say. Motocross, so there's no supercross in Europe. It's only motocross, and it's the world championship. They go all over the place.
Explain to the listener the difference real quick.
Supercross, the easiest way for someone who's never seen it before, supercross would be a ballet, and motocross would be a boxing match. Like, it's kind of the easiest way to explain it. Like,
Motocross, you might get hurt. Supercross, well,
yeah,
probably get hurt too.
I was going to say, like, I can't.
You can get hurt either. Let's be honest.
Yeah, ballet. I mean, I've seen the supercross.
It's just like very, very intricate, very fine, very small movements, very rhythmic.
Okay.
And motocross is outside in a field, wherever, rain, shine, 35 minutes on the motorcycle, 185 heart rate, like just tapped out. So it's
well, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that.
Best way I can.
But I don't want to jump that. That's a cool depiction. It's crazy to a novice who I just like. I know you know that I'm friends with Rusty, so I've seen the extreme world a little bit through the wakeboarding lens, and now through you, and I've had a chance to meet Ken before, so I've kind of had a quick little glimpse into the supercross. But I've been to supercross. I would not describe supercross as a ballet. Like I sat behind the starting gate in Tampa, whatever year I went, and I just remember seeing the riders lined up, and you say it's small movements. Is it because the track is just inside of an arena like that?
Yeah, inside of an arena, and like the jumps are super tight. So if you're short on one, you can, it messes up the transition, jump to jump. There's so many like intricate little things.
Precision really matters.
It's super precise. Yeah, it's surgery basically.
Yeah.
Where the motocross is trails and big hills and all kinds of all different terrain.
Right. Yeah, it can be anything. Like I said, they're typically in a field in the middle of nowhere, and there's 30,000 people there, and you're just riding around in whatever that day holds.
And how long is a supercross race?
Supercross race is 20 minutes.
20 minutes straight, and 35 on motocross.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Because I've never even been on a motorcycle.
And the bike. So you've won everything there is to win at the 250 class.
Yep.
And you've won everything there is to win at the 450 class. And coming from a novice, or not even a novice, the difference between a 250 and a 450.
Mainly the engine size. Engine size is 250 versus 450.
But the size of the bike.
Size is similar, but the weight is huge, and the amount of chain torque, which is kind of a technical term, but the way that the bike pitches and stuff is way different. It's basically apples to
How
oranges.
much does a 250 weigh?
I don't know that to be exact. I think around 220, and a 450 weighs around 240. But the difference in the crank weight and, like I said, the chain torque is massive.
You got a 250-pound machine under you that can go 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's crazy. And also too, it's like I want to go to the fact that you grow up, you probably had a blast riding bikes, right? And then you go and it's up and to the right. You go to your pro career, you have failure, right? You said you failed massively, right? You go to Europe because you have to, and then you kind of fall in love back with motocross and you start to have fun again. To me, that's a clue, because I think anybody that's setting out for anything successful, I think there are these seasons, the way you describe the first transition to Europe, it's like, hey, I'm pretty miserable. I'm pretty bummed that this is what it's come to at this point. I didn't expect this. And I don't know, there's so much doubt and uncertainty, is my perception. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? You only get a couple shots, and then you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? But then there's this recalibration of fun that I hear, and then obviously you go on and have this tremendous success. So break us down to what the next season looked like, right? If that was the transition back to America, when you hit the ground running, did you come back with a renewed, refreshed perspective, or what did that next season look like for you?
Yeah, it was also tough in its own way, because I had experienced this, what it can be sort of fun-wise and pressure-wise, and I I was super fortunate because my boss that I was talking about in Europe, he brought me here to America to race some supercrosses on sort of our own little privateer effort. We did really well, got on the podium at Supercross, which as a privateer pretty much never happens, and turned some heads. I had like 4 different offers, and I chose like one of the managers that I turned down now is one of my best friends, and he always says you chose Barbie over like the homemaker, and he's right. Like I did. I chose the name, and I took the least money to ride for what I felt like was the best team, and I stepped right back into that square pressure box,
right.
and it sucked. Like again, I struggled, got some results, but not what, like if I could do this on this privateer effort, and it was just me out of my kind of van and with some friends, then this, should be easy wins. And I was like barely scraping podiums and, up and down and some injuries and whatnot. So again, straight back to the struggle bus.
So there's some clues here that are being laid about this culture piece, this team piece, being yourself piece.
And some people it doesn't affect them, right? Like this team was massively successful, had, won tons of titles, tons of championships in the last 5 years on the up and up. Like it was the Barbie, right? So it felt really eerily similar, like, oh man, like, I'm right back in the thick of it where I didn't want to be. And my second ride, so that was 13 and 14, my second ride in the States, I found another group of guys that was like, oh wow, we can do this again. Like I like these people I'm around. They're giving me feedback. They're letting me kind of do my own thing and make it what I want it. And ended up staying there for 8 years, and that was
So that was the next transition.
Yeah.
Is I come back, I'm in a box, then I find it. Is it with the same team or is it now a different team?
No, a different team. In 13
completely
and 14, that was Geico Honda.
That was Barbie.
Yeah, that was Barbie.
Makes sense. I
And
mean,
then,
Geico, Honda, two huge sponsors in the sport, right?
Yeah, and then in 15, I signed with Rockstar Husqvarna, which was formerly Rockstar Suzuki, which offered me something even in 2011 before I came back here in 2012, and I turned them down again in 12, and then in 14, in the end of 14, I took the deal finally. And
wow,
hindsight's 2020. Like maybe it could have been better, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's two things you said there that kind of are a little bit of a dichotomy. Is they gave me a lot of feedback, or they gave me instant feedback, but they also kind of let me do my own thing.
Yeah.
There's this like blend between accountability, high level of feedback, but also this independence to allow somebody to kind of, through their own personality, have some guardrails, but have enough space to be themselves.
Right.
That's kind of what I hear. And that's that balance that clicked for you.
Yeah, exactly. And the Barbie team, they were not like that. It was like, this is the walls, and you can go to this wall or to that wall and in between, but not outside of that. Not even on a personal level. Like I'm not super off the wall. I'm pretty straightforward, straight edge. I'm not like the most interesting guy on the planet or anything. So it wasn't even from a personal level, just from like a riding, racing, training perspective. I felt like I was in this stuck position.
It's interesting to me though, right? Because you think about a Honda and a Geico, and not that matters, but it's like when you make what you do such a business, they obviously had their formula for how it needed to work, right? And we want the team to fit in this box and the rider to fit in this box. They had to have had success with that, which is interesting to me, because it's like when you could have a stud come along like you were, but the personalities don't mix, or the lines, it's like, man, that was a great opportunity. Like, what do you mean you didn't do well in that role or in that job? It's like, well, I just didn't jive with the personalities, right? So it kind of tracks a little bit with business. Yep. It tracks a lot with business, right? And then, fast forward to the Rockstar Husqvarna. Yeah, you said Rockstar Husqvarna, yeah. And they still have created the container that allows them to run it like a business, but personalities just prevail and allows you to be you. And I just feel like is it a miss on Honda in the beginning because they were so rigid, or is it no, this is how we do it, and we're okay to lose a guy like Zach?
I think that's more like it. Yeah. I think that they were okay. Like, if you could operate in this box and win, then great. If not, then
that's their style.
So be it.
Well, and I also think, because there's firms I think about in our industry, I could name one, but I won't. But it's like you have these firms that they do it this way, only that way, but it's a high level of attrition, and they're okay with that. They built a business model where large recruiting classes, only a couple of people are successful.
Right. Yeah.
But it works for them.
It's a
and then you have
good parallel.
the other way where it's probably too broad, too liberal, and maybe there's not growth. I tend to think us as a business and leaders try to be somewhere in between where you can borrow something from both models but make it into your model. And I also think about like no wasted experience, to where I'm sure that being on the Honda Geico side where you're fit in a box and you're hitting the guardrails, you probably learned something from that experience that you brought to the other experience.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Like at every turn, I felt like I've learned something. My mom often compares my life to Forrest Gump in a sense. Like looking back, it's like, oh, wow, I was so close to like the absolute wrong decision there, or like it just happened and here we are,
Yeah.
And I feel like those were all kind of pieces that I needed to see and
Yes.
things that I needed to feel to be, where I am today, or to become the champion that I was. But it's such a strange thing finding your place in sport, I feel like.
Is the line between talent a very fine line? Everybody's talented. Everybody, or are there gaps in? I mean, the top riders and the lower level riders.
In from here to here, yeah, but like in the top,
you're all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. Like it's,
you guys are all
finding
you're all
yourself.
fitness fanatics. You study the sport, you study the ride, you study the track, you study every potential external factor is part of your strategy in preparing for a ride.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're kind of building your own program and processes and how all that works and flows together, and that's kind of where I found my niche. After in 15 and 16, I had decent success. I won my first race in 16 at the end of the season, made a change to come here to Florida to work with a new trainer in 17, and I won 4 Supercrosses, 2 titles, 5 outdoors. That was like the big shift for me. And I feel like at that point, in 16, I had found this list. It says 10 things that take zero talent. I'm sure with this work atmosphere, you guys have seen it. Right?
I haven't.
No?
I don't know if I know the 10.
I can
Really?
promise you we're going to look it up.
Okay. Well,
10 things that take no talent. I think I've
rip
seen
them
it.
all off right now, but like
Yes.
being coachable,
Sure.
being
Yes,
on
yes,
time,
yes,
being prepared, being organized, like
Dude.
just basic stuff that costs you nothing.
You
10
stumbled
things
on
that take
this.
zero talent. I came across it. I don't even remember, like on Instagram or
Come
something.
on, I have goosebumps.
Yeah. And so I like in my house in California, I had like a little coffee nook, and I had like these magnet boards, and I put that on there, and then I was doing like daily quotes and gratitude journal and all these things. And I started to like kind of dig into like process and like what that looked like. And the more successful I became, the more resources I had to kind of implement these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw this Atomic Habits book back here.
Great book.
That was one of them, like one of the things I read. And like I said, the more successful I got a motorhome. I was able to kind of dumb things down there. So like for me, processes were the thing that really kind of changed me to be successful. Like I went from being a guy to the guy in a 2-year period of just like peeling layers back to where I could just focus solely on dirt bike racing, doing exactly what I needed to do each day, and putting the people in place around me, having the support system to be able to do that. And that was probably the biggest difference from becoming, from being like a podium guy week in and week out to being a champion.
Wow.
Man, that tracks so hard. Go ahead. I
Wow,
see your wheels turning.
My wheels are spinning because it's like
that
the
just
balance,
took me a whole nother way.
It's just the balance
Yeah.
between having the creativity to be able to ride, but also this discipline and this process piece that allows me to focus most of my energy on the thing that gets me the highest yield, the highest result.
So like you said, like there's talent levels, right? And I would put myself in sort of a top 5 level talent of my era of my racing bit. But what changed it for me was, like I said, those processes to be able to focus solely on dirt bike racing and the level of fitness and kind of commitment that I went at it with.
It's funny, Zach. I think I picture a 3, a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old that just, I know that if I get on the bike and I wrench that sucker, I can rip. And it's like you go through this phase, and correct me, but I'm perceiving something, right? You're ripping, you're riding, you're good, you're fast, you win, right? And you progress, you fail, you keep going, you get up, you start again, you go on. But pretty soon, what it sounds to me is you started treating this more like a business.
Yeah.
It sounds like you started treating this more methodical. It's like, what I do matters. And I'm not saying you didn't at the earlier stages, but it clearly became apparent in 16 when you stumbled upon, and whether that was the catalyst or not, it's like, to me, that's just another way to formalize what I've been doing all along. If I haven't understood that I've been a process guy, maybe now I understand that I'm more of a process guy. So the more refined you get and the more evolution you experience, now it's like, man, now I'm a polished,
right.
You know, I don't know, I'm losing the
No,
word, but
that's exactly right. Like I felt like, especially the last 2 years of my career, I had a back injury, which kind of cut the end of my career a little bit short. But the last 2 years of my career, like, we literally ate the same things 7 days a week. Like, the store list for the motorhome was the same store list every weekend.
Yeah.
My mom was the bus driver, so she cooked the same meals. Like, it was super refined. Like, I mean, to the moment of
militant.
what it looked like.
It sounds
Yeah,
militant.
It was. And honestly, like, in the end, like, I could have lightened up a little bit, and it maybe burnt me a little bit long term. But it was the way that I knew to win, you know, and like,
gosh,
Once you figure that out,
yeah,
I'm not
like,
backing up.
yeah, it's hard to go away from that.
Yeah, that's amazing to me, because I think about people that are trying to have success, right? Especially when you establish some baseline level of talent, that stuff starts to matter more. And every time you escalate, everyone's talented, so these little things start to matter. But I also think about distractions, you know. So like when I think about in my personal life, when I'm at my best or a business, you have to find a way to kind of empty the cup of distractions first. And when I hear that we ate the same thing, it's not only that, you know, it's good for you or your body's used to it. It's that you don't have to make the decisions
Right.
every week.
Exactly.
And every day.
Exactly that. Like, I had all of my socks were the same.
Yeah.
All of my clothes were the same. Like, there was nothing that could, well, what about this? There were no what ifs, like, at all. And that was
Yeah, no
so
distractions.
The
big.
what ifs are on, hey, on this course, what am I going to do here?
Right. Then I
Or
could think about that stuff even more.
obsess
you know?
about it,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you're freeing up this capacity of
Right.
energy to be able to focus solely on the thing that gets you the highest yield.
Exactly. And like I said, I was a good talent, a really good talent, but my ability to really just be there, hone in, and work harder because I had more capacity was what made me a champion ultimately.
So we got to transition because
I feel like that's a great transition.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Ben.
No, we talk a lot. I kind of shared this with you kind of offline. We talk a lot about performers and what's the difference? Where can we get an edge? And as we were prepping for you, we kind of just talked about flow state, right? We talked about the fact that the extreme athletes are typically the ones that can find it the quickest and hold on to it the longest. And then when so we prepared a lot centered around that. Talk to us about, well, I don't know if you want
Yeah, just the science of flow, right? You've mentioned a couple of things throughout this. You mentioned pressure, right? You mentioned 30,000 people around a field, right? You mentioned 185 heart rate for 35 minutes in your full go. I just perceive these moments, and also the idea that, hey, this is my shot, and if I don't hit, I'm out, right? There's just a massive amount of urgency and pressure in these situations to where, you know, the untrained human can break or not perform, and then there's this level of being able to lock in during that 35 minutes and have blinders on for the task at hand or the training or whatever it is. So there's this science behind flow state that we've learned from a book, and I think it's called The Rise of Superman, or it's basically about the concept that you have to have enough pressure that is slightly out of your comfort zone, but it can't be too much that it puts you out of the game, and obviously it can't be too little. That is very easy. It's like this balance between that. And we talked about in preparation for extreme athletes, they're a great example of that because of the stakes being so high at every point where they have to find that flow state and performance to be able to even compete, nevertheless win. So I just kind of wanted you to bring us into your world is like, how do you perceive flow state? How do you perceive performance and that pressure and your preparation or your focus? Where how do you get to that point where you go, hey, all I see is this next turn. All I see is this. I'm not seeing 30,000. I'm not worried about the win. How do you hold that?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a 4-part question.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is I've only experienced like what I think of as true flow state maybe like 4 times in my life. One of them being this one race that I'm like the most famous race of my life, where I fell in the first turn, came back and won this championship in the last corner. And it was that like aha, like it's over moment when I crossed the finish line, because I was
blacked out.
just completely blacked. And that feeling, that one particular one, is far above the rest. Like the performance of my life, will never experience that again, likely, unless I'm in some sort of life or death situation. Just crazy. Didn't feel tired. Didn't feel really anything. And remember like 2 happenings from the race that kind of momentarily glitched my focus. I read this book called Endure in
Cam Hanes?
not the Cam Hanes one.
Okay.
I can't think of his name. It's not Tim Ferriss. I'll send you guys a link after. But and it was talking. I got hurt in 2018. Blew my shoulder out and had the summer off. And I read this book, and it talked about like the whole book. The basis is comparing what stops you: fitness, things outside, whatever, or your brain protecting your organs because of the primal instinct of reproduction, saving the world.
So the constraint of human performance
Right.
is acknowledging there's 2 factors.
Yeah, these are the basic 2 factors, and what is it?
One's physics, one's your brain telling you, hey, you can't go any
Exactly. So the gist of the book in the end is that it's your brain protecting your organs from dying, basically. And there, we know protein, sugar, carbs, fat, but there's a 4th fuel source called ketones, which is now a huge thing. Mm-hmm. I discovered ketones in like 2016, and they were like a huge piece for me to be able to get in a flow state. Same time I discovered Wim Hof and was able to kind of strip some of that back. And that was, I was never a meditator, but it was like a quick, easy way to like just get my brain cleared up and free. So in this book, it says if your body feels completely protected and fueled, you can squeeze like a little bit more out of the top end. I'm like, okay, let's try it. So that was massive for me. Like once I knew that the only thing that was stopping me was like my actual primal being brain, I was like, well, let's go for it. Like let's see how far we can take this. But yeah, there's a lot there, but
So how would you do? So was it obviously ketones is diet?
Yeah.
Right. So you started to dial your diet to be able to reduce more ketone. And then when would you do Wim Hof?
Wim Hof on the starting line. I'm also kind of notoriously famous for throwing up on the starting line. It's like this very early days coping mechanism that I had from like the first race I ever did.
Fascinating.
And still have it today. Like even racing bicycles, sometimes I'm like a little bit gaggy on the start. And people would always like be like, how do you do that? Like it wasn't even like I was puking food, but like just the feeling got me where I needed to be for whatever reason. Like it was an instant.
It blows me away though that you say you've only feel like you've ever really truly experienced flow state 4 times.
Yeah.
Like 35 minutes on a bike. I don't know what the average speed is, but you got 250 pounds below you. One blink and you're off the bike. And those and we, as we talked earlier, those aren't small consequences when you leave your bike.
Well, I think there's a valley between like conscious thought,
Okay.
no thought, you're doing your job, and like this other realm of like you're not there or whatever. Like it's just your body
distracted.
doing like truly doing what you're trained to do, and your conscious mind is out, or your subconscious mind.
Unconscious competence.
Yeah. It's
The highest level.
yeah.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
that I've only experienced a few times.
Okay.
This valley of peace where there's no conscious thought and you're at, super high heart rate, that I've experienced a lot. But
Maybe you'd call that conscious competence. Interesting.
Or
4
maybe
levels.
just a lower version of unconscious
Yeah,
competence.
yeah.
But anyway, continue in regards to the endure thought.
So I like once I learned that, I started to kind of dig into my own self, and that's when I started to process this thing more heavily, and like what I could take away from my brain just to give my brain more power and less stress and less thought.
So would it just be like laundry or like
No,
little things like that?
Legit, the last 3 or 4 years of my career, I did nothing.
Nothing but ride.
Looking back, I was
Eat, sleep.
Yeah, and my wife was all in, like always, like dumb idea after dumb idea. It's like, let's do it. Like, let's try it, you know? And naps in the afternoon, like whatever. It didn't matter, you know? And so a lot of credit is owed to her for chasing my dumb ideas, but it worked out in the end, luckily. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, what comes to mind is like, if you knew what it took to be a champion, would you still want to be a champion?
I would do it over 10 times out of 10, but I don't think that people who, I think that people who are like, for example, in our sport, 12th to 20th, have no idea. Like, really have no idea what
They probably think they do.
digging in and like really grinding it in.
There
yeah,
it is.
looks like.
That's what I meant.
Because I didn't, even when I was in 5th place, I still had no idea really how far away I was.
Yeah, it's like this. So yeah, it's like you think you're that close. Probably is my perception. Hey, I'm in 5th. I'm in 10th. These guys are, man, they're not that much better. But you're so far and away as far as the level of discipline or process or nutrition or sacrifice.
Right. I was really close in 2016 to winning some Supercross races, and Cooper Webb, who's still one of the best riders today, he's currently leading the 450 Supercross Championship. Good friend of mine, training partner for a long time. In 2016, he was also leading the championship. I was the second best guy, and we had this one race particularly in San Diego, and I led for like 10 of the 15 laps. He passed me, led for 2 laps. I crashed, and like it was the closest I had ever been to winning at that point. And I remember driving home that night, and I told my wife, like, I don't think I'll ever win. Like, it's not me. Like, I don't know why I can't close the deal, you know? So, like, that was how close I was to sort of not giving up. Like, I wasn't quitting, but, like, it was just like, yeah, I guess I'm just a podium guy unless I luck into one of these things or whatever. And then, like, 3 years on, we were talking and in the shop one day, and I was like, you know what almost broke me was 2016 at San Diego. And he was like, you have no idea how close you were to winning that night, because I was on the ropes as well. Had you not fallen, like, you were sort of one lap away from maybe having a second chance at winning that race. And I was like, it was a huge eye opener for me, because I was like, dang, like, that's how close it really was. But in my mind, I felt like I was a million miles away. Like, why do I want to keep racing, you know?
It blows me away. I think of the parallels, right? It's like you're in business, you started a business, you're not experiencing the success you think you should experience. Maybe you don't see yourself experiencing that success. Maybe you've thought about, I'm just going to always be average, or I'm not going to be a top performer. But there's just so much lesson to be learned in, let me continue to innovate. Let me continue to dig. I'm 3 feet from gold. There's
that meme. Most people have seen it, and there's like the 2 guys that are digging, and the one guy's turned around and he's like this far from the gold. And it's for me, it's like, holy crap, that is so true.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people turn around just right at the goal.
Well, there's just such a testament.
And me being one of them, like I'm admitting that,
Yeah, such a test. I mean, we all are, right? We all have those moments. I mean, I don't care, I don't care who you are. I mean, to me, the special sauce is the fact that I kept digging.
Right.
I took one more shovel full of dirt, and all I know is to keep going, right? And your story is riddled with that. I mean, I think about our story. I think about anybody who's built anything, right? It's like it's never been just one. I've made the decision to go, and now I'm all of a sudden at the top. I mean, you don't hear success stories without hearing it's not the journey that looks from start to finish. It's all the mess in the middle, and you're drawing you're illuminating that so much for people in business, people in sports, brand new producers starting out that are struggling. They're 2 years in. It's like, man, it's hard to do it in 2 years. Like, keep going. It may take you 3, it may take you 4, it may take you 5. But and I think kind of the testament that Cooper gave, right? It's like, to you, you were so far away. To him, you were so close, and
Yeah.
he won.
Yeah.
I mean, like that to me, that's the guiding light that says, man, it's like, be careful what you say to yourself, be careful what you believe, or be careful don't listen to yourself all the time if it has to do with the fact that, man, I'm way far away when really I'm probably wasn't that far away at all.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's such a simple little meme, but it means a lot to me because I'm like, dang, like I was that guy. I was about to turn around.
Can I ask you a question? You said you'd do it 10 times over again. Why?
I think that it's just honestly, for one, experiencing the one flow state was enough for me. Like I'll chase that for a long time. I'm content not chasing that anymore, but it was an experience.
You still kind of are though.
Sort of.
I mean, you're racing pedal bikes now.
I race pedal bikes, but I'm content with being a mid-pack boat at that. Like, I enjoy my buddies probably more than I enjoy the bike riding.
That's cool. That's cool.
It just seems.
I gotta believe that fire's still in there though.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'll slap some dingers every now and then.
Yeah, it just seems like when you mentioned the producer, the business owner that's getting going. We call it the messy middle, where you're just, man, am I going to make it? I don't know. I think I'm going to make it. I think I'm doing all the right things, but there's more doubt and uncertainty than there is certainty, and I think doubt and uncertainty are healthy. But what I also wonder in your story is when you started digging in more into the process and obsessing about the energy focus and this is what I do every day, and I'm clearing my mind of those things. I wonder if that started to reduce some of that doubt, anxiousness, or uncertainty because there was just such a focus on the work rather than the focus on are we going to make it. And I know in my own life right now, one of the mantras that I work with, even getting into the ice this morning, like every time I get into the ice, I'm always amazed. I know I'm going to get it in the ice. But I'm like, I'm not going to, I'm not going to get in the ice, man. Like, I don't want to, and I'm thinking all the excuses. And so I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he, calls it his inner bitch. And then his voice that's like, man, you don't do that. And then he calls it his other voice, the general, which he's like, hey, we're doing it. And that's what I think about. Like, if it's your brain, it's like, no, you're going to be fine in the ice. You're getting in the ice. And I was thinking about that a lot this morning, and I wonder if the process helps. Because for me, when I can lean into a process or a daily discipline, or I'm wearing similar things, or I'll lay my clothes out, it just frees me out to say, hey, I know I'm going to execute, and by doing the work, it'll take care of itself. And it kind of helps me with some of that anxiousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that I've been an anxious person towards racing and towards life in general, probably, for most of my life. But the processes took 99% of the thought out of it, and the factors of that I could be anxious about. So then it was like, all right, like we're gonna go do this. Like, and there's a certain level of, like the peace zone I was talking about. Like that's really close to death, I feel like, in some way, because you're riding like you said, a 250-pound motorcycle that'll do 70 miles an hour. You're jumping at 40 feet in the air, et cetera, et cetera. You're riding around at 185 heart rate. Like it's all those things that are really close. So, it just took a lot for me to be like, I can do this 100%. And once I got to that fitness level, put the processes around it, it was like, we're going to go race, and they can beat me, but they're going to have to bleed to do it.
And they're going to have to beat me.
And they're going to have to beat me.
Wow.
They may beat me on talent, but they won't beat me on anything else.
And
I was fine with that. Like that was me doing.
Hey, sometimes you take the shot and you miss.
Every champion's journey looks different. It looks super easy from the outside. Maybe it's not from the inside, but like everybody's story is a little different.
I have two quick thoughts. One, accessing flow state's important, but the release is equally important, right? And it's like I think about how rigid you were leading up to the race, how regimented you were leading up to the race, and you're like, all right, let's just go do it, right? So I'm not telling you, but I think to myself, man, I wonder if he was in flow state more than what he recognizes, or just the different levels of flow state. Yeah. Not for argument, but then I think my question is, when you're done and you realize that you're done for that day or that race or that heat or whatever it is, talk to us about that release, and how was it an intentional release? What did you do after a race? I mean, did you go sit in a dark room? I mean, what does that look like to get yourself back from, I'm all business to just kind of maybe a play mode for a little while?
Yeah. For me, I had my daughter when we were 24, and it's kind of a, let's say, pre that, it was kind of a taboo thing to have kids during your career. Like some guys did it later in their career, but to have never won a race, have a kid, and then like have all your success after that.
Interesting.
Was really weird, like really strange. Like nobody did it. Now everybody has kids, and it's not nearly as weird. But for me, I think having my daughter, seeing all that, kind of took. I was never like the selfish asshole athlete, I don't think. Maybe someone around me would say I was, but in my opinion, I wasn't. But that took me even further away from being super selfish. Like that was kind of like, oh, wow, there's more to life than racing, and it's going to be okay. Like, at times it felt heavy, but I think that they took a lot of the I don't know how to say it, but like
Just perspective.
Yeah, it was a lot of perspective.
So you finish a race and you go pick up your daughter,
Yeah.
and I mean, immediately changes your whole posture,
Yeah.
your whole
Exactly, we're back to living.
just
Yeah,
that fast.
Yeah, that's what I think. Just because those races, you have 35 minutes of just as amped as you probably can be, as focused as you, and then all of a sudden it's just got to be this exhale, see my family, do normal stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get back to business. So there had to be kind of this natural rhythm, at least in my head, is this buildup of, and one thing, Rod, I wanted to ask you this, and before we were talking about this, we were talking about golf, and I was watching a golf tournament last week when we were preparing for this podcast, and I was just thinking about, you kept saying, well, this is not like golf because the stakes and so on and so forth, you could really get hurt, and there's a lot to be said about that. But the one thing about golf is it's 4.5, 5 hour round, right? Where you're trying to win a championship on Sunday, and every shot has never mattered more than that one shot. And you're in a focused state, and then you're waiting. And then you're in a focused state, and you're waiting over 4 or 5. Yeah. So I always look at them like how mentally exhausting for these guys to get done with a 5 hour round. So I would ask you as a former golfer and being around that game, like what's that like to hold a level of focus for that long? How do you deal with the release and the focus?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play the PGA Tour, but I caddied on tour after my career. I caddied on tour, and I got to see Tiger close up in his prime. And what I noticed between Tiger and the guy I worked for and the guys that were, 30 or plus in the world, I always feel like nothing could get in front of Tiger. Nothing distracted him. It was a singular focus. He never took a break over those 5-6 hours during a round. And it was just, he's like a Jordan, right? It's like there's just nothing more important than what I'm doing. And I think about the guys that I knew who were struggling or aspiring, everything distracted them, right? So that's the first difference I immediately think of. I mean, I even think of my role as a caddy, like, how much of my role was to keep them focused. It's like, well, you can only do so much, right? It's like, and you'd argue that, our job was to take their mind off of it in between shots. But I think as a former player, obviously didn't get to that level, but I mean, I just think to myself, we used to call it purple patch, and Steve will hear this and he'll laugh, but purple patch would mean, I make a swing and it's exactly what I visualized, and it went exactly, was shaped the same way, the flight was right, the height, everything was checked off. And then I go to the next one, I hit another one, and it's the same way I visualized. I go to another, and I hit another one, and I string 3 or 4 or 5 together. We used to call that purple patch, because then you'd hit a foul ball or a kite without a string, and you're like, well, shit, that's gone. So that's why I think it's a little bit more difficult. Like, you don't get a break. 35 minutes of just, I just can't imagine the intensity of just holding the handlebars for that long, and how hard you got to squeeze them, right? Where in golf, it's like if it's good shot after good shot after good shot after good shot after good shot for 5 straight hours, it's like, okay, cool, you sustain it. But it's like the second you hit a bad shot, how quick can you recenter, let the release happen, and then try to get back into that? To me, that's what makes that an interesting thought.
It's a little bit the same though. Like, you can mess up corners and or have a moment on a jump or whatever and not die, and it breaks the focus a little bit.
Okay.
So there's a little bit the same of that, I would say. The duration's definitely different, but at the same time, you get to the track at 7 o'clock in the morning and you leave at 5 in the afternoon. Yeah. So, and you can't really be like playing video games in between. Some guys do, but I didn't. Like, it was, you've got to be pretty locked in. You're making decisions on suspension, on bike changes, watching the track, watching TV to see the lines, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like you can really.
I wouldn't have perceived that it was that kind of day. It's like,
Yeah.
I thought you got there an hour earlier.
No. I mean, Supercross race is extremely drawn out. It's like you get there 8:30, 9 o'clock, do a warm up. Once you do the warm up, you go do a track walk, and that's at 9:30 in the morning. Main starts at 9:30 at night, so you're there for 12 hours. You have so much adrenaline at 10 o'clock at night. You need to eat. You need to, debrief with the team, et cetera, et cetera. Go to bed at 3, get up at 6 to go to the airport, and
That's the
go
life.
do it all again.
That's the
Yeah,
life.
it's pretty
That's the
serious.
reality.
I think about that transition real quick. It's and again, just my perspective, but it's like you the more you started treating it like a business with processes for everything, the more success you started to find. We talk about seasons of a champion. In this season of your career, you're working through some business opportunities, right? And right now, I think you're maybe managing or leading a team.
No.
Or that's
So
done.
I have a couple of businesses of my own. I own an epoxy floor business here in Central Florida.
Okay.
Casa Plantar. It's
nice.
biodegradable disposables made from agave powder. So it's all the waste from tequila. We basically dehydrate it and then mix it with water, and then it makes sort of a plasticky thing that goes back to the earth in 80 days. So it's much better for everything than plastic straws.
Wow.
So we have cups, cutlery, and straws of all sorts for that.
Wow.
Own some commercial buildings, part of a sock brand called Courier, which is like high performance socks for running, cycling, training, etc. So I'm pretty spread out at the moment.
We're going to get all that contact information. We're going to share all that. But I just think to myself, with your mindset now being so structured and so regimented, I can't imagine how cool that would be, those opportunities when you bring that sort of mentality into business.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, like I said to you before we started, like, people always told me if you just do business like you did racing, you'll be super successful. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that, because racing was literally 24/7 and like down to pooping and like, I mean, everything's monitored, right? Like, not to be TMI, but like you can't do business like that. So for me, it's been kind of
Especially if you're trying to do it over the next 50 years rather than 10,
right,
15,
exactly. So for me, it's been a little bit of an eye opener, but also like we do good, we make money, so it is what it is. Like, I can continue sort of keep going down the path and refining our processes, and eventually it'll be streamlined and, kind of hands off.
Yeah. And by the way, I think the whole point of business is to continue to be in business.
Yeah, exactly.
Play the game.
Exactly.
Right?
Playing the game, that's right.
I think that when there's an arbitrary number set and you hit it and you realize that there's another one you set and you hit it, and if you're chasing those, we've experienced that, it's emptiness.
Yeah.
Versus just finding things that you get to learn and skills you get to stack, and then the people you meet along the way, the experiences you have. So I think it's really cool that this season of life. But I want to come back to one thing, because I was thinking about, the new professional, the new producer, somebody starting somebody new. You mentioned something about Tiger that you mentioned a little bit earlier, is distractions. And just thinking about success, and people set goals and how much they want to have sex. Or you want to have sex too. That's
Speaking of, I thought you were going somewhere else with that,
dude,
because of Tiger's distractions.
We need to talk about this.
Tiger
I mean,
clearly had his own
Right.
Tiger had his own version of release.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't be that focused. I'm not going to get in the mind of somebody that I don't know, but you can't be that focused for that period of time and not have some serious release. And he chose a different release than maybe some other people would have chose, but that's okay. But I guess the point being, and by the way, I used to play with guys, and there was a guy that sticks out in particular. Speaking of me saying having sex on air, but there were things that you wouldn't do before a game because you wanted to remain focused and you wanted to have the most energy. And this gentleman would always do that before a game. And at one point, and he was a little bit of a lazy player. And at one point, one of our teammates called him out on it. And was like, bro, that's over. I'm coming to your room. I'm knocking on the door. That's not happening anymore. Because you could see such the difference. And I'd say that just because it's such a distraction. Most people say they want things, and they're not willing to kill the distractions that are sometimes so obvious, but there are these patterns of behavior. So what's showing up for me throughout this, if you're listening, is to say, hey, take a sample size of your days and your weeks and take a look at how distracted you are. That's not on purpose, right?
Yeah.
If you have a distraction that is your release, right? That's one thing, right? If you are a Monday through Friday guy, I used to be like this, I'm not anymore. I used to be Monday through Friday, I'm on, and then boom, weekends I would blow it out. I'm not able to sustain that anymore, so I have a more balanced approach now. But there's got to be some sort of release, but make sure that like that's intentional and that you're not getting eaten alive by distractions that you're not even aware of.
Right.
That's so well said.
Because, when you start to look at all this, you just your energy is finite, right? At some point, you only have so much time in the day. You only have so much energy. You only have so much focus. And make sure that you're taking care of those distractions.
Yeah, that's really a good point. I noticed, all of us everyone I know is guilty of just too much time doom scrolling, and I'm guilty of that. So I've been trying to regulate that a little bit better and, do something constructive with that waste of time.
Well, I can only imagine, man, hearing your story and understanding a little deeper than I thought I did. It's now way clearer to me that you are the champion that you've become, and it's inspiring. A lot of respect for you, dude.
Thank
you.
A
lot of respect for you.
Same, man. Such a cool. You have such a cool vibe about you too.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
It's just I borrow from it a lot.
Where can people find you, man?
Instagram is probably the main place. I'm not very good at social media because in my mind I live a very boring, process-filled life. But I'm trying to do better and show a little bit more of myself and post-racing life and what that looks like. So
That's awesome.
that's probably the main place.
Cool.
I love how the extreme sport champion is boring and methodical. That's a little bit of a clue for me too, because I think you sometimes look up and out and be like, well, that's a really cool life. That's a really cool profession. I do insurance. I don't think that's cool. But the process is the process,
Well, like I said, I'm super surprised you guys haven't seen the list, because when I walked in, I was like, this is different. It feels different in here. It's people have life in them. It's not an office.
That's
it's
a
not
cool
an insurance
compliment.
office. So
love it.
You guys have done really well with that. I was, like I said to you before we started, I went to a motorcycle company this week that's kind of potentially offered me a job, and they had everyone in the company sitting in a big room, and they went person to person. What did you do this weekend? What can we do for the company, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, dang, that's really cool. That's camaraderie, and I love that.
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
But with your experience with not having it and finding it, to us it is the it's our one non-negotiable, right? If you're a culture fit, you can be here. If you're not, you can't. And we can teach you and modify and work with everything else, shortcomings, whatever. But if you're not a culture fit, it doesn't work. So I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we humans need other humans. And by the way, thank you for tuning in. Zach Osborne, man, that was a treat. And for everyone listening out there, life's not meant to be ordinary. No. Life's meant to be extraordinary. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks.